The FICCI-IIFA Global Business Forum is a partnership between the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry and the International Indian Film Academy. The IIFA, as is commonly known, began in the year 2000 as a child of the new millennium, with the vision that using the language of cinema and the power of cinema, the IIFAs would traverse across the world, connect people, build bridges, connect communities using the power of culture, soft power, and begin to make a difference in a spirit of one people, one world. But whilst the IIFA is a great entertainment event, come, create a big splash, and can go away, it's really the difference that is made in the partnership set up through business and economic opportunities that really connect, form firm bridges, and last the test of time. FICCI and IIFA got together in the year 2005, and it's a partnership that is now 12 years old, and so give both of them a really big round of applause. In this journey, the IIFAs and FICCI have traversed across 11 countries, 14 distinct destinations, and it is the 18th IIFA, here in New York. It can't get much bigger than this for building economic opportunities. So without further ado, I'm going to call to the podium to address us on behalf of the FICCI delegation, Vice Chairman Sun Group and NECM member FICCI, Mr. Shiv Khemka. Just a brief introduction on Mr. Khemka. He's had more than 20 years of investment and business experience, principally focused on Russia and India. After having headed up the family's Latin American activities in the 1980s, Mr. Khemka began leading Sun's investment and entrepreneurial activities in Russia and Ukraine in 1990, building a significant example of successful foreign direct and private equity investing into Russia, Sun Interbrew. He also established and led one of the first private equity funds in Russia, Sun Capital Partners. He was elected a global leader for tomorrow at the World Economic Forum in Davos in 1997 and was invited to join the forum's Foreign Business Leaders Council for Russia. I personally had the pleasure of working with Mr. Khemka on the Global Education Leadership Foundation, a passionate project that he runs to build young leaders for tomorrow. And last evening, a fantastic dinner was hosted at the Pierre, a fundraiser to really focus on youth projects, youth development, and various needs that can champion and power India into the future. Ladies and gentlemen, without further delay, Mr. Shiv Khemka.
Good morning. Good to have you all here, and I am so honored to be speaking to this august audience. I'm delighted that I'm on the board of the Asia Policy Institute, and I am very proud to be addressing all of you this morning. I was here a couple of weeks ago when our Prime Minister visited Washington and met with President Trump. And there was so much excitement on both sides. From the Indian side, the Indian delegation, I know, was very excited about what this would mean for our two countries. And I know the US side was also enthusiastic about deepening and strengthening its relationships with India. And I'm very pleased to say that it was an excellent meeting. It was a meeting that showed that there is a real strategic element to our partnership, and it reinforced many of the commonalities that connect our two great nations. And I think a lot of those commonalities have to do with culture, have to do with the values we espouse, have to do with the entrepreneurial energy that exists in this country and that is latent in our country. And I think that this is really the beginning of the next 20 years where we will see a transformational relationship happen between our two countries. So I'm really delighted to welcome you all to this FICCI-IIFA Global Business Forum. I have been working with FICCI and with IIFA for some years, and I'm so delighted that this event, the IIFA Awards, have come to New York. We are honored to have, obviously, Honorable Kevin Rudd, President of the Asia Society Policy Institute, former Prime Minister of Australia with us, Ambassador Riva Ganguly Das, Consul General of India in the United States, Mr. Anil Agarwal, Chairman Vedanta Resources, other distinguished guests. And I think that it's true to say I attended the Barcelona event last year, again done by FICCI and IIFA, and I think this has become a tradition, connecting people through the common connection of entertainment and our cultural heritage, Bollywood, but really talking about serious issues connected to business, study, entertainment, and other things that connect our two nations. The theme of today's forum is India and the United States, Partners in Progress. And I think that during the visit of the Prime Minister, it was announced that the Global Entrepreneurship Summit is going to happen in India in the next few months. And we're very excited about that, because we think that in a country where we need to create 1.3 million jobs a month for the next 30 years, entrepreneurship is fundamental and key. And obviously, entrepreneurship with innovation is what we need. And our government has taken a lot of steps to start to move in the direction of trying to get our economy moving in the right direction. You know about the tax reforms, some of the other reforms that our government has instituted over the last few years. India's rank on the Global Innovation Index 2017 has moved up 6 places to 60th amongst 130 nations, emerging as the highest-ranked economy in Central and South Asia. We think India and the US need to do much more together, and I think India will continue to both give and take from that relationship. Innovation as a major theme of partnership means innovation in a very broad sense, not just innovation in business, but also innovation in health, in education, in oceans, in space, science and technology, cyber security, and many other things that we think that the two countries share and have common challenges and common opportunities. We acknowledge the initiative of President Trump for India's formal entry into the International Expedited Traveler Initiative, the Global Entry Program, to facilitate closer business and educational ties between the citizens of India and the United States. India reported a growth of 7.1% 2016-2017, and really is one of the bright spots in terms of the work that is happening there as an opportunity for corporations and others in this country to come. Flagship programs such as Make in India, Skill India, Digital India, the Smart Cities programs, all programs you would have heard about, are starting to get traction, and we see it as business people on the ground. Although things move slowly, we do see significant progress starting to happen. Better transparency, we think much less corruption, and we believe that contrary to articles in some of the world's press recently, we actually believe that significant progress has been made and is being made. And as Mao Zedong said about the French Revolution, it's too early to say, but we do think that the small shoots of great progress lie there. And I think the US is a core partner in that growth as we go forward. I think the discussions today, I'm confident, will touch on various things: economic partnership, defense and security, manufacturing and infrastructure, innovation and entrepreneurship, media and entertainment. And I hope we will have a very productive dialogue. We will find partners. We will have discussions that allow us to broaden our thinking about these issues. There is no doubt that partnership with the United States is an integral part of our foreign policy. For us, the United States is a major source of technical, technological, and financial support to assist in India's transformation. We have been making efforts to strengthen our strategic and commercial ties with the United States over the years, and it's great to see that things are moving forward. And yet, the relationship still requires continuous tending in order to overcome hurdles and manage divergences. This will be particularly important as India, the United States, and the world experience important political, economic, social, and technological transition over the coming years. I would like to take a moment now to thank our partners, Asia Society, to allow us to host this event on their premises. I'd like to thank our supporting partners, USIBC, in Diaspora, IAF, IAGCC. I'd also like to thank our knowledge partners, KPMG, for associating themselves with this business forum and bringing out a report on India-US collaboration, an alliance for mutual growth and inclusive prosperity, which will be released at this platform today. I conclude with the recent statement of our Prime Minister made during his visit to the US, and I quote, "I'm sure that the convergence of my vision for a new India and President Trump's vision for making America great again will add new dimensions to our cooperation." This sums up the spirit of our age-old partnership. I wish all of you every success in your deliberations, and to all of us who've come from India, a very pleasant stay in New York. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shiv. Our next speaker joined the Asia Society Policy Institute as its inaugural president in January 2015. He served as Australia's 26th Prime Minister in 2007 to 2010, and then again in 2013, and as Foreign Minister from 2010 to 2012. He led Australia's response during the global financial crisis, reviewed by the IMF as the most effective stimulus strategy of all member states. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the President, Asia Society Policy Institute, former Prime Minister of Australia, the Honourable Kevin Rudd, to address us.
Thank you very much, Sabbas and Shiv. Great to have you here, and not just as a globally prominent son of India, but as a friend of us here at the Asia Society and a member of the Council of the Asia Society Policy Institute. Also to Riva Ganguly Das, to Tom Vajda, who we're going to hear from soon, and Anil Agarwal. I see my good friend Hadi Puri here. I see Marshall Bouton. I see a whole bunch of people who are associated with the United States, India, and the world. Well, welcome to the Asia Society. We've been around for a bit, about 62 years, and I haven't been here for that long. I'm pleased to say that the Asia Society is somewhat older than I am. But the vision was pretty simple back in the 1950s. At the time of the Cold War, John D. Rockefeller III said, we need to have a bridge between this country, the United States, and the multiple countries and cultures of Asia, which transcends politics and which transcends the geopolitics of the moment. Quite a visionary statement in 1956 when you think about it. And that's been our mission statement ever since. Our president, Josette Sheeran, says, we seek to bring light, not heat, to some of the world's most intractable problems, including those between the various countries of Asia and between the individual countries of Asia and this country, the United States. And so a couple of years ago, the Asia Society decided to establish its first think tank. I call it a think-do tank. It's the Asia Society Policy Institute, and we seek to grapple with some of the deeper foreign, security, economic, investment, trade and sustainability problems which are common to the many countries of Asia and shared between that vast continent and this vast country, the United States. And we're doing okay. And India is a core part of our program. We would hope in the future you would continue to see the Asia Society as India's home here in New York. And frankly, wherever you are in the world, across our 12 centres, both in the United States and across various centres in Asia and in Europe, regard us as your home. Because we see it's a core part of our mission statement is building the depth of the India-US relationship, but frankly, supportive also of India's wider role in the world. My own engagement with India goes back a bit. I'm not a student of India academically. I don't speak a word of Hindi, as my good friend Hadi Puri will tell you. But I was a student and remain a student of classical China and modern China. But when I was studying China and Chinese at the Australian National University, we were next to, physically, the Department of Hindu Studies. It was my privilege as a young undergraduate to be able to each day to meet in the common room Professor Basham, who wrote The Wonder That Was India, the great text on Indian history, in particular the evolution of the India which became the modern India after Gandhi and Nehru. And as a fresh-faced, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed young undergraduate, to sit at Basham's feet in the common room and listen to him discourse on India and my own areas of intellectual fascination, which was the exportation of Buddhism from India into ancient China, and the importation of various aspects of the Hindu view of the world into notions of what the Buddhist priesthood was, and how that would in fact engage with Chinese notions of the role of Confucian scholars and the relationship between Confucian scholars and those associated with religious and political authority in China was a fascinating study then, and 2,500 years later, it remains a fascinating study today, if you look at the rise of Buddhism in China today. Personally, it's been my great privilege to be in India on many occasions, as Foreign Minister, as Prime Minister, as a Member of Parliament, as President of the Asia Society Policy Institute. My wife keeps saying to me, can we just go as us one day and actually have a look around? And I promise her one day we'll do that. She, like I, love India, and we look forward to spending much more time in your extraordinary country. I've also had the opportunity to sit down with your Prime Minister, Prime Minister Modi. Marshal Bhutan was with me on that occasion. And I've been, quite frankly, stunned knowing something about modern Indian politics at the pace at which Prime Minister Modi has moved at two levels. One, globally, he is the international Energizer Bunny. If you know what I mean by the Energizer Bunny, if you've seen the ad. There is no rest for this man. Perhaps I'm wrong in making this analogy, but I have not seen as internationally engaged and active an Indian Prime Minister since the days of Nehru. And this is quite a remarkable feat. Quite a remarkable feat in placing, frankly, India at the forefront of the global imagination. You go to India, this is a greatly politically self-absorbed society. You have the most riotous media in the world, apart from Australia's, and the most disrespectful in the world, apart from Australia's. This is part of our collective celebration of our democracy, our riotous democracy. But to have observed the ability of Prime Minister Modi to carve out time to place India at the forefront of the world's mind and imaginings of the future is of itself unique in contemporary Indian politics. But then simultaneously, domestically, those of us who care for India's future, including your friends around the world, have watched very closely the evolution of the Indian domestic economic reform program. I've been there and been told 1,000 times that the GST would never get through the Indian Parliament. It did. I've been there and been told 1,000 times that the demonetisation program were a political catastrophe for Prime Minister Modi. I may not be an expert in Indian domestic politics, but I do know what Uttar Pradesh is, and I know it's a very big state, and I know it's got a very big population, and the extraordinary political win which Prime Minister Modi had there recently, in addition to 2 other states, was something which we who have been professional politicians look at with some degree of admiration. And so the political consolidation he's achieved at home on the back of a reform program, not just on tax, but also on the question of foreign investment liberalisation and on the question of infrastructure reform, and his international agenda, has many of us looking with great anticipation as to how India will now evolve. Which brings me to 2 or 3 concluding remarks. Those of us in the international community who follow these things closely want India to be globally active and engaged. We want India to be globally active and engaged. We want India to be globally active and engaged on basic questions of geopolitical stability. We want India to be globally engaged in terms of being a leading power in the overall strategic stability of the Indian Ocean and the Indo-Pacific region. We want to see India and will actively engage in the East Asia Summit, a group of 18 countries across East Asia plus India. And, if I can have my druthers here, we would like to see India become a full member of APEC, the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Conference. Might I be so presumptuous as to say that this would be good for India, as it would be good for the region and good for the world? People say to me in India, where you have a robust, shall I say, protectionist tradition in some parts of your economy, I can say that without giving offence, because I actually like the country, is that APEC has performed a remarkable function across wider East Asia over the last 30 years of its existence. It has effectively acculturated and socialised East Asia into the norms of open trade, freer trade and open investment flows as being the ingredients of take-off economic growth levels. If we roll back 30 years and ask that question, was it the case in Korea then? Was it the case in Vietnam then? Was it the case in Malaysia then? Was it the case in Indonesia? The answer was no. But the socialisation of wider East Asia into the future economic opportunities which lie through open trade relationships and open investment relationships are enormously beneficial. I know there's a group who will always say in Indian politics and in the Indian media, well, that just means that India will end up buying more from them than they will from India. And I think, however, if we were to take that approach, APEC would never have come into being in the first place. And the enormous benefits, if you speak to our friends in Jakarta, which have been delivered to Indonesia over the last 30 years as a consequence of APEC membership, and the changes in economic policy and culture which have occurred as a result, have been all to Indonesia's advantage. I think if you ask the APEC members today, would any of them like to leave because it hasn't advantaged them? Then the answer would be no, and 1,000 times no. So therefore, can I say simply that we would welcome India's participation in APEC as well. To conclude, if I could simply say to all of our friends from India, all of our friends from the United States, we are delighted that you have chosen to be with us here in New York this morning. I'm told that FICCI, which I know very well, the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, and IIFA, the International Indian Film Academy, have been doing this for more than a decade together. This is a remarkable piece of synergy. It's worth of a Bollywood performance in itself. They bring together the people from the stage and the cinema house with the more boring people from commerce. I think of Mel Gibson. I think of Nicole Kidman. I think of Kate Blanchett, and I think of other Australian actors who are here in New York, like Hugh Jackman. There's something for we Australians to learn as well. But there's a cautionary note, I would say. As a friend of mine said to me when I was Prime Minister of Australia, you know, PM, what politics is? I said, no, what's politics? They said, politics is Hollywood for ugly people. And so this was a disturbing observation for a senior member of staff, but we can all deal with help. We can all do with help when it's offered to us. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us here today. We look forward to sharing these events with you. Always see the Asia Society and our Policy Institute as India's home in America and around the world. I thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. It's awesome to see the passion with which you both look at India, dream about India, and dream for India. Thank you. Our next speaker joined the Indian Foreign Service in 1986. She's a postgraduate in political science from Delhi University. Prior to joining the Foreign Service, she was a lecturer at Delhi University. Before joining as Consul General of India in New York, she was Ambassador of India to Romania, Albania, and Moldova with residence in Bucharest. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to welcome Consul General of India in the United States, Ambassador Riva Ganguly Das to address us.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction. It's a great honor and a pleasure to be here at the inauguration of FICCI-IIFA Global Business Forum at this historic Asia Society premises. As you heard, this is a business initiative which has been in existence since 2005 and has grown over a period of time. And it's a great platform for political leaders, business leaders to exchange views against the backdrop of the IIFA. The focus of this year's event, India and United States Partners in Progress, is a very timely one, coming as it does after a very successful visit by the Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi, to United States last month. Visit of Prime Minister Modi also marks 70 years of diplomatic relations between India and US. Our leaders have, during their interactions, resolved to expand and deepen our strategic partnership to advance our common objectives. You've heard the other speakers also talk about the shared values of our two countries. US is the oldest democracy, and we are the largest democracy in the world. There are natural synergies between India and US. During the last few decades, we have, those of us who watch the relationship, has seen the fascinating transformation that the bilateral relationship has gone through. And no relation between India and any other country can match the range, depth, quality, and intensity of India-US partnership. The US has been our foremost partner, not only in trade and investment, but also in technology, knowledge, and development. The deepening of our relation is rooted in our shared values of freedom, democracy, human rights, tolerance, pluralism, equal opportunities for all citizens, and rule of law. During the recent visit of Prime Minister Modi to Washington, the warmth of our bilateral relationship, the strong desire of both countries to consolidate the multidimensional strategic partnership, and the chemistry which the media so much talked about was really evident. The overall theme of the visit was, of course, the India-US are mutually supportive of each other in a changing world. This has many facets. One of the most obvious ones is the strategic convergence between India and US, which naturally leads to discussions on defense, security issues, as well as discussions on connectivity. US recognizes that India today is a major engine of global growth, and there is overall appreciation both within the political as well as business circles about the structural reforms that Prime Minister Modi has undertaken. There is recognition amongst the business community that it is easier to do business with India today than ever before. As you're aware, Indian government is committed to transforming India into a major player in global value chains. Since the launch of Make in India in 2014, much progress has been achieved in pursuing the country's manufacturing agenda and global competitiveness. Globally, India is the sixth largest manufacturing nation and the biggest recipient of investment inflows, touching 60 billion in 2016-17, which is also the highest ever annual inflow into the country. This comes by virtue of our improved ranking on Global Competitiveness Index, Global Ease of Doing Business, and Global Innovation Index. With the introduction of GST, we can look forward to greater improvement in these parameters. I understand there is a panel today on manufacturing. I'm sure the participants are going to have a lively discussion on these issues. Today's program, as you heard, is an extremely substantive one with full day's discussions on various aspects of our relationship, covering defense, aerospace, security, manufacturing, infrastructure, entrepreneurship, media, and entertainment. We see that with the rapid changes which are taking place globally and changes taking place in US and India, both partners, both India and US, are well placed to meet each other's demands. The example of civil aviation comes to mind. There is, India is emerging as one of the fastest growing civil aviation sectors in the world, and there's huge demand for new aircrafts from a number of airlines, and many of these orders are coming to the US, creating jobs and demands. Second example is that of natural gas. We know from next year, LNG from US will start flowing into India. There is an expectation that in the next few years, it will be in excess of $140 million US. On the innovation side, those of you who have been following India-US relations, you would have heard CEO of Apple, Tom Cook, who was quoted as saying that Apple today uses 100,000 apps which have come out of India. Prime Minister Modi, of course, had a very interesting discussion with CEOs of companies during his visit to the US. The sector which is perhaps most indicative of the transformation in India-US relations is the defense sector. Recently, during their meeting, President Trump and Prime Minister Modi have pledged to deepen the defense and security cooperation, building on United States' recognition of India as a major defense partner. US and India are now looking forward to working together on advanced defense equipment and technology at a level which is commensurate with that of the closest ally and partner of US. As you're aware, ahead of Prime Minister's visit, the US had approved sale of drones to India. In addition, India's recent acquisition of US military transport airplanes, maritime surveillance aircraft, are all pieces of this story. We have till now bought about $14 billion worth of defense equipment from US, but we are going through a transformation phase where we are looking more at technology transfer and projects together. So I am sure during the panel on defense sector, all these issues will be discussed in greater detail. Energy is also another area of cooperation which is, on which there is a lot that is happening. Moving forward as global partners, US and India are looking at collaboration in health, space, oceans, science and technology, and also a very important sector of cyber activity. We are committed to working together on open, reliable cyberspace environment, and that supports innovation, economic growth, and commerce. US and India both possess the world's largest entertainment and media industries, both in terms of sheer output and global popularity. Given this, I think there are a lot of synergies that are there, a lot that can be done together. We can come up with a common approach on cultural market access. People-to-people connection has always been a very important part of the India-US bilateral relationship. The 3.8 million Indian diaspora, 1% of US's population, which is extremely successful, is amongst in the highest income brackets, is politically active now, is a great asset to India-US relations. And I think events such as IIFA, which gives enormous visibility to India, in a city like New York, in a vibrant city like New York, is extremely important. I think it's a great way to showcase India's soft power, and I'm really pleased that IIFA has finally come to New York, first time ever, because Bollywood continues to be popular all over the world. It has no boundaries, it has a universal appeal. And this global forum is back-to-back with the IIFA Awards, is a great opportunity for business leaders to exchange views, and I'm sure this will be a very fruitful day which will come up with lots of concrete business opportunities for both sides. Thank you all and have a nice day.
Thank you, Ambassador. Our next speaker couldn't really make it today because of personal emergency. The President of FICCI, Mr. Pankaj Patel, has sent us a video message, both with his remarks and to tell us how special this event really is and how much it means to him. Can we have the video message, please?
Dear delegates, it's my pleasure and privilege to greet and welcome dignitaries and friends at FICCI-IIFA Global Business Forum 2017. Though I am unable to join you personally due to an unforeseen exigency, I wish all success to the delegation today. The Global Business Forum that we organize with long-standing partnership of this craft every year has substantive business agenda combined with excitement of being organized along the IIFA weekend. The choice of United States as a destination has been made keeping the vibrancy and growing dynamism of India's strategic partnership with the US. The city of New York personifies with this spirit, and special greeting to the youthful dynamic Indian diaspora present here today. I hope that today's discussion will result in great business ideas, innovative model of partnership, and a deeper nurturing of people-to-people ties. I close my message with the word of Indian Prime Minister Honorable Narendra Modi ji during his recent visit to the US. I quote, "I'm sure that the convergence of my vision for New India and President Trump's vision for making America great again will add new dimension to our cooperation," unquote. Once again, my greetings to all of you and wish you successful deliberation. Thank you.
This is the second visit of the IIFAs to the United States. We were here in 2014 in the city of Tampa, and it was a great event where we had Ms. Nisha Biswal, then the Assistant Secretary for South Asia, joining us, and we had a great engagement. I went back home to India, and at another event, had the pleasure of meeting the gentleman I'm just about to introduce. And his first remark was, "I've just come to the consulate. It is my mission that before I finish my term out here, that you must take IIFA back to America." And literally, he has moved to America, back to an assignment out here, just a month before the IIFAs could come here. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the podium, post my introduction, Mr. Thomas Wider, Deputy Assistant Secretary, State Bureau of South and Central Asia. Thomas Wider assumed the post of Director for India in June 2017. Prior to that, he served as the US Consul General in Mumbai, beginning on July 31st, 2014. As Consul General, he was responsible for representing American interests and promoting US-India relations in the Indian states of Maharashtra, Gujarat, Goa, Chhattisgarh, and Madhya Pradesh. He's probably the most popular man for most Bollywood stars who want to get to America. Ladies and gentlemen, Thomas Wider.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for that wonderful introduction, Sabbas. It's great to see you and a number of other familiar faces from my days in Mumbai. And it's a particular pleasure to welcome IIFA back to the United States and to the great city of New York. Please consider yourselves officially invited to hold all your future IIFA events in the United States as well. Honored to share this dais, obviously, with such an incredibly distinguished group. And I also want to express my thanks for 3 organizations for putting together today's business forum: FICCI, the Asia Society, and US IBC. Each of these organizations, in different ways, really have done a tremendous amount of great work in strengthening the US-India partnership, and for that, I'm very grateful. So I'm currently the Acting Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for South Asia, but as you heard, until really about 3-4 weeks ago, I was the US Consul General in Mumbai, which I assure you is the very best job in the US Foreign Service. Mumbai is, of course, the home of Bollywood, but to be frank, typically the only time any Bollywood stars wanted to talk to me was when they needed a US visa. So it's glad to be on the other side of that equation for the moment. But that said, if there are any Bollywood executives in the audience who are looking for an over-the-hill, middle-aged American to serve as an extra in your next movie, please come see me. As the ambassador mentioned, this year we're celebrating 70 years of diplomatic relations between the United States and India. And I can honestly say that the ties between our two countries have never been stronger. We are partners in the true sense of the word, working together on an incredibly broad range of issues: security and defense, trade and investment, health, even the exploration of space. What brings the United States and India together is a convergence of our values and our national interests. Our expanding partnership is recognized on both sides as being in the best interest of each of our nations. The United States fully recognizes the importance of what India represents: a democratic nation at the center of a region of great consequence, a market for our companies to serve and grow with, and a partner in the fight against the evils of terrorism in all its form. And that's why, in recognizing India as a major defense partner, the United States is committed to India's rise as a regional security provider. As it's been noted, and as I'm sure all of you are aware, just over 2 weeks ago, President Trump hosted Prime Minister Modi on an official visit to Washington, and there the two leaders laid out a shared vision for a partnership going forward. The President chose the Prime Minister as his administration's first ever guest of honor at a White House dinner. Their time spent together spanned a total of 5 hours, which is a remarkable amount of time for any head of state. President Trump declared that the U.S.-India relationship is and will continue to be one of the most important strategic relationships of the 21st century. Two strong, resilient democracies that share common values and whose national interests closely align. Relevant to this business forum, it's important to note that trade and economic ties will remain a fundamental pillar of our relationship. In fact, the joint statement that the two leaders released during the Prime Minister's visit focused on the theme of prosperity through partnership. In their meeting, President Trump and Prime Minister Modi committed to increase free and fair trade, to address impediments to market access, and to promote jobs and economic growth. They pledged enhanced cooperation on energy security and the provision of U.S. energy exports to help fuel India's growth and inclusive economic development. They highlighted the importance of promoting innovation, technology, and entrepreneurship as key drivers of growth. And as you heard, toward that end, the two announced that the United States and India will co-host a global economic summit this year in India with a particular focus on women entrepreneurs. I think it's perfectly fitting that the United States and India, who share such a strong culture of innovation and free enterprise, will come together to help support the development of entrepreneurs, not just in both our countries, but around the world. So, our two countries are working together in support of peace and security. We are working together to spur economic growth and create jobs. The leaders and governments of both our nations are committed to the strategic benefits of the relationship. That is all hugely important and a cause for great optimism about the future of this partnership. But for me, especially after spending the last 3 years in Mumbai, I believe it is our people-to-people ties, our incredibly deep people-to-people ties, that will serve as a strong foundation for our partnership in the years ahead. Last year, we saw more than 1 million Indian visitors to the United States and over 1 million American travelers to India. 166,000 Indian students studied in the United States in the last academic year, which is a record. Some 4 million Americans trace their heritage back to India, and right here in New York, Ambassador Nikki Haley is serving as the first Indian-American cabinet member in U.S. history as the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. Indian Americans head some of our leading corporations, including Google and Microsoft, and are driving many of our startups in Silicon Valley. And American and Indian researchers are working together on cutting-edge science, including sending probes to Mars and tracking gravitational waves in the far reaches of space. And I would be remiss, of course, if I did not mention that our two people share a passion for filmmaking and cinema. The U.S. and India have the two top-grossing movie industries in the world, and with growing ties between Bollywood and Hollywood, that will be on full and extravagant display tomorrow night. So let me again commend IIFA for coming to America and helping to solidify our cultural and business ties and putting on a great show in the process. Thank you very much again, and my best wishes for a successful program.
Thank you, Thomas. It's always a pleasure to meet you and hear you speak. The IIFAs in the year 2007 did something quite dramatic. It changed its red carpet into a green carpet. And with that singular move, it indicated a clear use of this great entertainment platform to be able to talk to the world, not just about entertainment, but about issues that concern the world. And the first issue that we embraced at that point was environment. What people need to do about climate change and how we can protect the planet became a war cry. In the subsequent years, we moved forward. And 3 years ago, prior to the general elections, IIFA took on this move to embrace and campaign about the power of 49. What's 49? The percentage of women who live in India, and the percentage of women who can go out and vote. So we use the power of Bollywood and celebrity engagement to be able to get people to go out and vote, get women to go out and vote, because you can get the government that you want if you go out and vote. And the difference was dramatic, that wherever the IIFA campaign ran, in those key markets and territories, the percentage of women voting grew by anything from 35% to as high as 60%. That, in many ways, is the power of Bollywood. Why am I telling you all this? The next segment is about IIFA honoring a leader, a business leader, who's making a difference with what he does. Mr. Anil Agarwal, chairman of Vedanta Group, has first pledged 75% of their wealth for social good. I think that calls for a round of applause. We hope that by celebrating Mr. Agarwal and Vedanta, we inspire others to emulate the great example and follow suit. Mr. Agarwal was appointed to the board in May 2003 and became the executive chairman in March 2005. He is the chairman of the nominations committee. Mr. Agarwal founded the group in 1976 and has over 3 decades of entrepreneurial and mining experience. He has led the group and has helped to shape its strategic vision. One of its most passionate programs is a project called Nandghar. They've re-envisioned the Anganwadis as they were known in India, to embrace the Prime Minister's vision of digital India. So you've got e-learning and all the facilities that come with digitalization. You've got nutritious meals and clean water, high levels of sanitation and hygiene being maintained across the Nandghars, which are these perfect homes both for child development, education, and also for skill development for women and employment for women. IIFA this year is supporting Nandghar and celebrating it. And as part of that, FICCI and IIFA are pleased to present to Mr. Anil Agarwal the FICCI-IIFA Global Leadership Honor for Business Development and Community Development. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to invite Mr. Kevin Rudd, Mr. Thomas Wider, and Ambassador Das to present the trophy to Mr. Agarwal. May I request Mrs. Ambika Sharma and Shiv Khemka to join the photo opportunity. Now, ladies and gentlemen, with a thunderous applause, may I invite Mr. Agarwal to address us, both as the recipient of the honor as well as a world leader, business leader. Mr. Agarwal.
I should carry this trophy.
Of course. You can place it out here.
It's a pleasure and honor to be here in the Asia Society. Mr. Sabha from Wizcraft, IIFA, FICCI, and all distinguished guests on the dais. It's my privilege to be here. It was really a surprise for me. US was a role model for us when we started our business. We always, two democratic countries, think alike. And I always said, when our Rishi Muni died in India, they become born as a billionaires in United States. What Mr. Sabha, IIFA, star-studded night going to be on Saturday tonight. It'll be great. The whole world, this is the first time they're going to have the live and almost more than 1.5 billion people going to watch this. This is great, great achievement from Mr. Sabbas. We inspire with the US, and I started with a very humble beginning. I come from Bihar. I born and brought up in a very modest family, and till the age of 20, I haven't seen out of Bihar. And then I spent about 15 years, always wanted to do something, always wanted to achieve something. And I came to Bombay and started some scrap business, had some idea about the cable business. I started cable business, and to excel in cable business, I didn't have the money, so I somehow just got the visa. Very difficult to get the visa at that time from US Embassy. Came here and started looking up around second-hand equipment. And there was a company called Essex and Fred Zinzer, and I was very persuasive. The Indian entrepreneurs are very persuasive. They will not leave it. They start with the no, and that's how they start. When they get the no, that's how the beginning starts. And I was very persuasive, and he wasn't sure whether he's going to sell those equipment, and I could buy those equipment and set up one of the very good unit for producing jellyfish cable, telephone cable, which was allowed in the Narasimha Rao government time to produce telephone cable into the private sector. And then I started, and I realized I started doing some IPO and raised some money in the market. Then we have, I looked at the cable need raw material, copper, and we find that the copper is a really short supply. I started looking around, how can I produce copper as a raw material? And then it goes on, and then I have to raise more money. Government privatization policy came, and the government privatized the largest aluminum company, Bharat Aluminium, which was a Navratna, and I could buy that company. When I was buying that company at 550 crore, I didn't have 5 crores in my pocket, and I get inspired from the US entrepreneur, and my CFO said, "You are bidding for 500 crore, we don't have a 5 crore, how do we achieve?" I says, "All right, let's do one thing at a time. Let's do one thing at a time." And then we floated the tender saying that, look, this is the largest company we are buying. Whoever banks is interested, come, we will consider. And trust me, I got the call from the 3 bank chairmen that your CFO is not taking money from me. And this is how things work. And then we realized we need to expand, we need to produce. Our company, almost 1% GDP of the country. We produce 30% oil in the country. We produce zinc, copper, and am I taking a long time? No. Yeah. So, and I was so excited, and I said, how do I raise the money to expand? Trust me, I went to London. 2002, I moved to London, and I sell India's story. The BJP government was there, and they really supported me. And from then till now, we listed ourselves in London, we listed ourselves in New York, and you will be surprised. We raised $33 billion out of overseas, and invested 90% of the money into India, and some of them goes to Africa. I'm very connected with Africa, and when I see the philanthropists in the US, I realize that's how it should be. And one thing I realized, to learning from the industrialists, entrepreneurs in US, to live a very simple life. And the whole purpose of life is give back to the society. And in this, I have met Prime Minister Modi. He inspired me that the biggest challenge of India is 8.5 crores children, and almost 2 to 3 crores women. They have to come out. We have to give them a proper up to the age of 7, and we created this Anganwadis. Almost 1.5 lakh Anganwadis is not working. Government has a huge fund, and I say, as I run my company with the same passion, I'm going to take up this challenge also. I believe in the God. I really believe that no matter how much you do, the final nod comes from Him. Whether you call it Allah, whether you call it Krishna, whether you call it Jesus, or anything, there is something you have to hold on. So I hold on to them. I don't spend time on the religious activity, but I believe in the superpower, and that's how I'm here where I am. So we have started this program of Nandghar, which is a unique. We created this high-tech house, about 700 square feet, and we have said that let's build 4,000 Nandghar. The Prime Minister has given this name Nandghar, which is for the children. So in the morning, it is a solar, it has a hand pump. All Nandghar has the borewell, and it has a TV. TV is fully connected. That's how fully connected. We have a solar, so there will be no electricity problem. So in the morning, about 8 o'clock, about 40-50 children come from the village. The students from the nearby college, they volunteer, and they go to the house, especially to the girl's child, to bring them to this Nandghar, to educate them. And we have a medical van which comes and look after their health. On from the Google, WhatsApp, everybody is helping us to do this e-learning. And they're converting into the Hindi and the local language. So we teach them basic. And the biggest challenge which we are facing today is a nutrition meal. That's how I need your help, being in the United States, to come out with the unique idea. How can we develop? I heard that a lot of medicine, a lot of supplements are coming. Even the child has half the food. If the this supplements given, it can take care of them. I'm in touch with the NASA. I'm in touch with the other people, whoever can help, because cooking the meal is not going to work. It has to be a packed meal. It has to be packed somewhere where it goes to this Nandghar center. We heated them and give it to the children. It has to be tasty. It has to be, so we are in process at the moment. We are cooking and giving to the children. I believe I want to really take this to adopt 50 million children and at least 20 million women. And in the afternoon, we get all these women from the village, bring them, and they are really good. They are entrepreneurs. We develop their skill, and everybody can make 200 rupees, 300 rupees, 400 rupees, and they have that ability and capability. So this is the mission we have taken up. At the moment, we said, let's do 4,000, which will cater 200,000 children and about 100,000 women. So I'm very pleased and thankful for inviting me, giving me this award, to Mr. Sabha, to FICCI, to Asian Society, Honorable our formal American consul from Bombay. I have Consul General from US, from India, FICCI member, and our best friend Shiv Khemka. All the best. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Agarwal. In honoring you, we honor ourselves. I'd just like to briefly share with you a small film on Nandghar that Mr. Agarwal so passionately spoke about. We managed to capture a little bit of it. It's about a minute long. So can we have that?
सुनकर राष्ट्र का आवाहन वेदांता ने शुरू किया एक अभियान नंदघर मकसद आंगनबाड़ी को आधुनिक शक्ल देकर इसे नंद घर बनाना, ताकि बच्चों को मिले सही पोषण और बेहतर एजुकेशन। ये बना है केंद्र बच्चों के साथ साथ औरतों के भी उत्थान का, उनके स्किल के डेवलपमेंट और उनकी सेहत की जांच का। पहले चरण में सोलर पैनल्स, ई लर्निंग और क्लीन ड्रिंकिंग वाटर से युक्त पूरे भारत में 4000 नल हैं, जो भारत की 2 करोड़ औरतों को सशक्त बनाएंगे और 8.5 करोड़ बच्चों के उज्जवल भविष्य की नींव रखेंगे। देश के निर्माण में वेदांता का अनोखा योगदान। नंद घर।
Today, 100 Nandgars, tomorrow 4,000, and then it can keep growing. Like IIFA believes in the green, FICCI too is passionate about the green and the environment. So instead of having the traditional gifts that I've presented to speakers and those who take time off to be on the dais and address all of us, FICCI has introduced a unique concept called the green certificates. So for every certificate that is presented to one of the speakers, FICCI ensures that 6 trees are planted in the Sundarbans. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to invite Joint Secretary General of FICCI, Mrs. Ambika Sharma, to present the green certificates to our dignitaries. Thank you. It's time now to present and release the FICCI KPMG report on Indo-US partnerships. The report attempts to outline the emerging trends in the Indian economy, which have helped transform the country into one of the fastest growing economies and probably the most promising marketplace in the world today. It provides an interesting insight into the evolving India-US business dynamic and how both countries over the years have converged on interests and issues that matter to provide a sustained momentum to this bilateral cooperation. Finally, the report brings forth at a high level some of the key sector opportunities that exist for US companies looking to leverage the India opportunity across sectors like aerospace and defense, media and entertainment, energy, information and computer technology, ICT, pharmaceuticals, and others. Please, may I request at this point the copy of the report for all our dignitaries and Mr. Amber Dubey from KPMG to join us here on stage. May we have a photo opportunity representing the launch of the KPMG report. We also have a FICCI-IIFA Global Business Forum, IIFA Business Connect, that has been produced for this occasion by Business India, a leading publication from India. And a copy of that would be made available to all of you whenever you want from the reception. It's a fantastic document that puts together some of the analysis across different sectors, and interviews with leading business leaders. Ladies and gentlemen, whilst I call for a close to the inaugural session, may I please thank all our dignitaries for having been really fantastic, erudite in everything that you shared, and thank you very much.